Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Beyond the Romance. I am your host, Carolyn Hines, and today I am joined by my friend Ray Liu. Again, Ray. So we are back again to talk about another K drama. So this is, I would say, probably his second favorite drama of the year because previously we did Tale of the Nine Tail, and now we're going to do Goblin, also known as Guardian, the Great and Lonely God. But everyone calls it Goblin because the other name is just way too long.
Yes, very stars Dong-wook and your favorite actor, Gong-yu.
It does. He is. And so, if you're not familiar with Goblin, this show came out in 2016. It's about a dopeki, which is the Korean word for goblin, and this is an immortal being. And the way how they did it is they kind of switched up the mythology, so it's not an exact literal interpretation
Oh,
of
here.
goblin in mythology.
I think you said do
Dopeki.
dobek. I think it's the dokebi.
Okay. Dopeki is food, isn't it?
The boki is food. Is the
Dopeki.
yeah.
No,
I'm so
Dopeki.
hungry right now.
I think I'm thinking about food.
Me too. Um,
Hilarious. So should I start again? No, I think I'll just keep it. I think I'll just keep going. Let's just go. So it's Dokebi. Sorry, not Tteokbokki. Oh, tteokbokki is rice cakes.
very delicious
So
rice.
rice cakes with this really nice spicy sauce, and you can get it with cheese or with it comes with like fish cake, and I love. Oh, anyway, let me not digress. Let me not go down. But I love tteokbokki. And so it's about this man Kim-shin, who was a general in the Goryeo era. So like most of the time when we talk about K, most period K dramas are set in the Joseon era. I find particularly now in the last few years, a lot of them have been in the Joseon era, but this one began in the Goryeo era, which, if you're not familiar with Korean history, you have the Silla, then you have the Goryeo, then you have the Joseon. So Joseon is the last one that is carrying up technically into modern day. So Goryeo is just before Joseon. So he was a general, and we're going into spoilers because that's what we do here. And he was killed. But if you're familiar with period dramas, not only with Korean but Japanese and Chinese, what happens? The king is manipulated by a minister
Always.
with nefarious deeds. Yes, always they're always manipulated. These men never seem to think for themselves. But I will excuse Wan Yo for one reason only, because he was young and impressionable, and this man raised him from a child and filled his head with nonsense.
You know what's so funny though? And I'm assuming we can say spoilers here because it's been
Yes.
like 5 years since the drama came out.
Yeah.
I personally watched this drama this year for the first time. Of course, you know that, and I'm like the last person to ever watch a show on Earth. But when I realized that the king is actually Ethan Wook's character, the Reaper, and we'll get into like how he became the Reaper, right? But in the beginning, I was very annoyed with the king because I just thought he was like the dumbest person on earth. I'm like, how can you be so stupid to believe everything this the minister is saying? They're called ministers, right? Not the magistrates.
Yeah, they were called ministers.
Ministers, okay. And but then once I realized that, hey, wait, I think the Reaper can actually be the reincarnation of the king, then I was like a little bit more lenient with him because I'm like, I'm a fan of Lee Luke, so I'm like, okay, well, if he's the reincarnation of the king, then I guess I can let the king slide a little bit. But all jokes aside, yeah, it's so interesting that they chose to start with the Goryeo period. It makes sense because when we think of fantasy dramas, choosing Joseon would kind of be would kind of seem to be very it wouldn't really make sense. And I believe was Tale of the Nine Tail also taking place in the Goryeo time? Like
No, that was Joseon era.
that was Joseon. So that's why I felt like it didn't really make too much sense for me because I feel like even during the Joseon era, all these fantasy elements or fantastical elements don't really play that well. But once you bring it to Goryeo, when you have like all these like the way that Kim Shin was decked out, right? He had all these armors and stuff. I'm just like, that makes a lot of sense. And because the goblin or the guardian, I believe he was 1,000 or a really old,
He
like
was
several hundred.
900 years plus because from the time he was cursed up into modern day when it was set, technically 2016, it was just about 940 years.
Hmm.
So he experienced, when you think of it, he experienced the change of one from one era to the next, which I think really makes him interesting. I think the only other character that I've seen in a period K drama that comes that close to, with regards to timeline, is the character from My Love from the Stars,
Mm.
where he saw the eras change. So
Mhm.
Kim-shin is like really interesting in that he not only is immortal, but they give you the perspective of like, because when a lot of shows or films talk about people that live like really long years, they talk about experiencing, like time and eras, but this one they actually show you the transition
Mhm.
of all and like how that affected him mentally. Because if you like look at things like Twilight, they don't talk about the mental toll that living for hundreds of years will have on someone. Because like for Kim Shin, he was really interesting. I thought he was really interesting, the fact that we got to see how he mourned and
Mhm.
how having to mourn all these people that he grew to love, like they died and then he's just left alone again, but then he's not really left alone, which is something we're going to get into. And before we get in, because we're technically talking about all the things we like about the show, what I like to do is start with the things that we don't necessarily like, so that I like, because I like to end on a happy note, positive note. And for I know one of the things that I really don't like, but I'll have Ray start. So for Ray, what about Goblin is not that au fait with you that you're just like,
I think first and foremost is the fact that Yu-ina and Lee Dong-wook's character never really, they technically ended up together at the very end after they reincarnated, I believe, if I remember correctly. But in the present storytelling timeline, they were not together. And there were just so many reasons that I thought was not compelling enough for me to believe that they could be together. It's like, yes, okay, well, your reincarnation was the one who killed your brother and the one who killed everyone, basically, the king.
mm,
The king killed everyone, or ordered people to kill Kim Shin and also Kim Sung,
mhm.
the brother and sister, which Kim Sung is the reincarnation of, no, sorry, Yu Ina's character, what's her name again?
Her name in the Korea era was Kim
Sunny.
Son, and then in present day she's Sunny. Like
Sunny.
which is kind of like a play on it, which is a
Right.
play on her original name.
Right. So Sunny is the reincarnation of Kim Sun. And then when she realizes that, it's like, I guess the writers are trying to say, like, how would you be able to get over the fact that you killed my family, you killed my brother, everything like that. But it's also like it happened in Koryo. So it's like, look, just move on. And like they're just like, to me, they are such a compelling couple in a K-drama that I just love so much. And honestly, I don't think I've ever rooted for a couple, like an on-screen couple, this much when it comes to K-dramas. I've watched like K-dramas in the past. I think the last time I did something like this was rooting for Son Ye-jin and Kim Bin, which they ended up getting together in real life from Crash Landing on You. So I thought that was pretty cool. But then this is the first time I actually really enjoyed two actors on screen where the chemistry was so real that translated through the scripts, through their emotions that I really loved. And then we're also going to talk about the semi spin-off, which is Touch Your Heart, I believe, at the end of this
Yes.
episode. So stay tuned for that.
Yes.
So that was the one thing I didn't really like, is that I didn't get the happy ending that the two characters, my two favorite characters, deserved. But other than that, I don't think I have anything I particularly didn't like about the show. I think it's a really well made show. They had 18 or 16 episodes.
16.
16. I feel like maybe if they got 18, he could have gotten like a really nice ending. Not that this ending was bad at all, but that's just what I
You wanted a proper conclusion to their storyline.
yeah, like that like I
I think
really wanted something like that.
I think the reason for that is because K dramas typically they're getting a bit better with it. Whereas when you do have couples end up happy, you never really get like to actually see them exist as couples. Usually they draw out the relationship through, the turmoil, breakups, coming back together, family issues, all this ish. Like right up until like the very last episode, and then they only really get together what you would say like 20, the last 20 minutes, and then we never really get to see the couples exist as a couple. And that's something that does still very much frustrate me with
It
Korean drama.
does. I just finished Chocolate, the K drama, and they gave me like half an episode of them actually having sweet moments, and then like they broke it off like 15 minutes before the actual series ended, and I'm like, and then they got back together like the very last 60 seconds of the show, and I'm like, I didn't understand that part. But then it's also like a K drama trope that's very recurring in the
And
K
it's
drama space.
frustrating. Like one of the most egregious examples of that is Something in the Rain. Oh my God, that
That is
boils
the
my
same thing
blood.
with Chocolate, because in Something in the Rain, it was like the wedding scene, and then they kind of met each other again, and then all of a sudden it's like they don't want to talk to each other, and then like the last 10 seconds of the show, it's like let's move to Jeju Island. It's like, but what happened in the gap? Like I'm so confused.
Yeah, like Something in the Rain. Like I suffered through her horrible, terrible, awful, no good mother.
Hmm. One of the worst parents
Like
on K dramas ever.
she is the like props to the actress. I've spoken about her before, but I
Okay,
can't remember her name. But like she's amazing. Like she made me hate her character so much that when the actress popped up in Encounter, I had an extremely visceral reaction. I was in the front house and I was like, not excuse my language. I was like, not this bitch again.
yeah, she had that effect on a
She was
lot.
so good. I was like, not this
It
happen
was really
again.
good.
Like
Like when she broke down, just like her voice is so like hoarse, and then the way she just and then the scene where she was like slapping Sun Ye-jin's character and like ended up hitting Haeun's character. Like I love melodramas like that, and I think that's like the epitome of my kind of melodramas. But
like
anyway, back to Goblin.
like
Um,
she's so
the
awful she
trope I
belongs.
don't mind as much. When it comes to, it's kind of like something I accepted, like, oh, the couples always end up like a few minutes before the show ends. But what really royally messed me up is that we didn't even get to see them together at all. They were never official from beginning to end, but they were official after they're reincarnated to their new selves when he's no longer a Reaper and she's no longer, well, she's still human.
Mm.
And I believe they ended up becoming like actors and like an actor's assistant or something. And then
He was a cop and she was an actress and he was acting as her consultant for the show that she was acting on. So like
uh,
so like he was like the cop consultant on the show, and that's how they met up. So like we'll get into it a bit later, but like that's kind of the way how they do it, I think is a really actually really brilliant, because they in like throughout the show they talk about the four stages of life. And like that's where people got the idea that Touch Your Heart was kind of like a unofficial sequel to that, because they were talking about life. So we were like thinking, okay, their life in Goryeo was the first life. So like a lot of people are saying, okay, so their life in Touch Your Heart is technically uh their third life. And the reason it happens is
uh,
because there's very specific character traits that Yuena has plays Sunny with in Goblin that she carries over into Touch Your Heart. So but we'll get into that a little bit later. But for me, one of the things I didn't necessarily like, and I know this is a reason a lot of people don't actually like the show, or they're not like too fond of it, is the age difference. So like Eun-tak, played by Kim Go-eun, who is the female lead, her character is, when the romance or the interest between her and Goblin Kim-shin begins, is she's 19. So she's in the last year of high school, because if you don't know, Korean high schools, they can go up to 19, 20 years old. So she's in the last year of her high school. So she's 19 when she meets him. And he is, I believe, they never say explicitly how old he is, but he would have been in his, I think, early to mid 30s, technically, if you subtract the 900 years of the 900 plus years of immortality. So like if people are thinking, okay, but when he died, he would have been like his early 30s. So you got this man technically who's early. I'm like, true. It's disturbing because what, like there's other shows like Backstreet Rookie, where the female lead, the female love interest is still a high schooler, and the man is not. He's a grown man. I kind of give Goblin a little bit more leeway because technically he's older than everyone.
I mean, I when it comes to, I
Older than
mean, we
everyone.
talked about this before with Tale of a Nine-Tailed. It's that when it comes to fantasies and you have these characters that are immortal, like how do you put a cap on the limit of their age? Because it's like at this point, like, I don't think they even keep track of how old they are. Like how can you, you know?
Yeah, because he was like, I'm 900. Because I think thing asked him he was 939. But the thing is, the show never said exactly how old he was when he
Mhm.
died. So like so a lot of people think he's still old because he was a general. But I'm like, I give, as you say, fantasies and especially fantasies when you deal with immortality a little bit more wiggle room with that. And what I did appreciate is like with the character of Ji-Eun-tak, she was mature. Like she didn't act very childish. She would like, you know what I mean? Like if
Mhm.
she was acting like very very childish or very immature, that's where it would be uncomfortable for me because like you have a character who's not mentally and emotionally mature being
Right.
an older person. But with Ji-Eun-tak, which I think the writer Kim Un-suk, and she is the same writer who did King, Eternal Monarch, The Heirs, Descendants of the Sun. So she is known for writing dramas that are very dramatic
Mhm.
and have a lot of like emotional turmoil for the characters with regards to being separated by distance and literally time. Because if you don't know King, Eternal Monarch, they're separated literally by alternate dimensions.
Oh,
So like this writer is, she likes to play with time, which I think is a very interesting way to give your characters
conflict.
conflict. And I think she's a very smart writer in the way how she like makes things very believable, like the physics and and the understanding how, okay, if someone is like, how do we come up with the idea of crossing timelines and that kind of stuff. And she makes it very believable. Yes, it's fantasy, but you still have to kind of like bite into it.
Mhm.
And she's very smart with that. And so because like when you have a character like Eun-tak with Kim-shin, or Goblin as people like to call him, I think she balances out where Goblin himself is very, has like very immature moments and very childlike moments, and then there's more, and those are moments where she's like, what are you doing? She's like the more mature one, and they balance, and I think that's really balanced. I think that's really well done with the show. So that was so that's where I say, so it's like a not negative for me, but it's something that I think that I felt I needed to mention because it's a problem. It is something that a lot of people don't necessarily like with the show, and it's something that I did have to um I did have to like wrap my head around, because when I started watching K dramas, I didn't understand, like, where their high school, like they go in, they stay in high school longer than we do in North America, even in the Caribbean. Like in the Caribbean, in secondary school,
Mhm.
you can graduate secondary school at 14, 15, or 16, depending on what age you went into secondary school at, or and if you decided to stay and do extra courses. So like I graduated secondary school at 15 because I was born before, I was born after the school, what we call after the school year. So I was younger than everybody else when I went into school. So I was one of the youngest people to graduate in my year. But so when I started Korean dramas, I had to wrap my head around this age limit and how like they were portrayed in dramas. But that was, I would say, is probably my only negative. And I would say I would kind of agree with you with regards to how Sunny and Wan Yo's storyline ended. But the reason it doesn't end, I don't consider a negative, is how they explain it and how they make it work. Whereas like, you talked about her, like how do you, like, why were you gonna hold, not necessarily a grudge, but why are you gonna keep bringing up this thing that happened 900 plus years ago? And I think the reason it had to be addressed is because once she got back her memories, like that grief was still fresh in her, right? And she was still remembering, oh wait, the moment of my death, I'm still experiencing betrayal. I died as a traitor. Like you labeled me a traitor for siding with my brother against you, and so that's fresh in her mind, once she gets back the emotions. So she still has to process the grief of dying and the grief of losing her family, the grief of knowing that the person that she loved, that she died to protect, is the one who got her killed. So I understood why they separated. Yeah, it sucked because you're like, Iwan Yo, the Reaper. He, like, you're just like, I want him to be happy. Like he's been so miserable and so alone for so long. But you kind of understood, and I like that the character never holds that against Sunny, or even he doesn't even hold it against Kim-shin. Like he understands, like, this is your feelings and I have to respect that, right?
I have a question about the age gap actually that you brought up.
Yeah.
So the explanation they had given us in the show was that right before you turn 10, which
Mhm.
is a full cycle of like, I can't remember what the exact explanation was, but I think it's the number 10 is like the perfect number of, to God. And then 9 is like the imperfect number because it's not fully 10 yet, it's missing something to become 10. So
Yeah.
that's why they said 9 is a crucial number because when the Reaper first meets Eun-tak, she was 9.
Mm.
That was when her mother was taken from her, or like her mother, the ghost, I guess, who gave birth to her, had to
Yeah.
be taken back to the underworld or the um, heaven or wherever she went.
Yeah.
And then the next time she would technically meet the Reaper again would be 19, which is right before she turns 20. So do you feel like that explanation was enough for, I guess, you and also in the general public to kind of accept that age? And also, number two, do you think if the story started when the real story, I guess, like the story of Goblin started when she was 19 versus when she's 29. Let's say the whole story starts with Eun-tak being starting at 29 and Kim-shin is like whatever 30 something whenever he died. Do you think that that'll be more of a compelling story? Do you feel like that would cause a lot more conflicts for the characters to kind of work through, or would you keep it the way it is when she was 19?
I've thought about this, and I've seen the show for my recent rewatch for it to study, kind of study for this. Is I've thought about that. Okay, what if they had started the story where she was 21, 22, 23, but then, and I wonder, and I thought about, okay, if she did that, how would that affect, like, because spoilers, she dies, and then like that would affect the timeline, the age. They would have had to actually change the age of everyone else, because if you look at Dong-wook, they would have had to change the age of Dong-wook because he's still her oppa, he's still her senior. And that could have worked too, but then she would have been a bit too close to him in age. But then if they aged him up, they would actually have to change his characteristics, like that fun and playful person who was still young enough to be always asking his grandfather for a credit card, you know? And like, cause him being a bit immature, that's where a lot of the comedy comes from. And then when there's that scene where he has a switch and you realize that he's actually God, like he has a persona that where his body is taken over by God, where if that changed, if they had already made him more mature, and then we get that scene where he becomes God, we wouldn't have bought into, like, you wouldn't have had the shock value, because
Mhm.
you like he wouldn't have been able to play it the same way, because the reason he pulls off the God persona so good is because he's like a completely different person. He's more mature, he's suave, he has the hair slicked back, and he talks with like
Like
a
a 180-degree change. It was just like, who
like
is this person?
Yook Sung-jae is so good. Like if you've seen him in other dramas, like he was in because before he enlisted, he did Mystic Pop-Up Bar. If you see how he's such, I think, a fantastic actor, and like he uses his body so well. And I
Yeah.
think him put actually casting him, I think, with Gong-yoo and Lee Dong-wook was genius, because those other two actors are also really good at using their bodies to change their personas and to reflect their
Absolutely.
characters. So I think casting him was like brilliant to match up, because like they play these three immature characters, but they play them very differently. So I think I've thought about like the age, and like, if you change Eun-tak, you would have to change everyone else.
Mhm.
And like maybe if they had started perhaps when she was in her first year of university of college at like 20, that would have been, I think that they could have done that. But as you said, if you talk about the imperfect number, then she would have had to actually been 21.
Mhm.
And the thing is, because I'm not sure about for Korean mythology, or even like Christianity. Well, then if you talk about Christianity, seven is actually God's perfect number, because it's the seventh day of the week, it's the Sabbath, and it's considered to be complete in the fact that when you look at it with mathematics wise, it actually can be divided, and like it like has something to do with like you kind of how you have the Fibonacci sequence. Seven is one of those numbers that you can that do a whole lot of stuff with it
Right.
mathematically. So it's considered one of God's perfect numbers. So nine, I think the director, like you said, she chose nine because that's the other side of that. So it's technically a whole number, and then an imperfect number because it's not complete when we think of one and zero.
Hmm.
Because 10 is, you know, binary, one and zero, and like nine is not binary. So I think that's one of the reasons she chose nine. So and she would have had to like jump and go 21 instead of 20. So that it would have remained imperfect.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think this might be the only fantasy drama that I watched where there is this noticeable age gap, mainly because the main character, the female character, is still in high school, whereas like we watched Tale of the Nine Tail, the female character, the main character is already a full adult. She you know she's working already, like many years in the field already, and then I just finished my roommate is Gumiho. I love like these Gumiho shows.
I know I have to watch that one. It's on my extra.
That's it's a really cute show. But then also they did what you were just talking about. The Lee Hae, who plays the main character, she's a college student, and I believe she's like in her third or like final year or something. And then she falls in love with the Gumiho, who is 999 years. He has 1 year left before he turns to 1,000-year-old fox. So there's like a whole thing about it. But I don't know if maybe because like Goblin received all these backlash in terms of just the age gap alone.
Yeah.
Maybe all the writers have seen it and they're like, oh, you know, when we do a fantasy drama, maybe we should just forget about the high school girl kind of character and just choose a college character or like someone who's already in
Mm-hmm.
the working world. So I thought that's pretty cool, and that's what makes Goblin like kind of like a cornerstone for so many fantasy dramas at this
It
point.
is, and that's where we're gonna get into the. I'm gonna go and jump into the next one of our pluses because obviously we're in our the things that we like about the show now. This show has such a huge, massive cultural impact, not only locally in South Korea, but I think across all Asian dramas and internationally because you talk about the age and how I think like it did because this when Goblin showed I watched Goblin as it like just as it finished airing because I was watching on Drama Fever pour one up for the original G. You gotta give like you gotta go like R.I.P. Drama Fever, real one. That was a real one. But I had watched that was the set that I watched Goblin on, and I had watched it just after the show had finished airing. And as I was watching it, I was like reading up on like comments and things, and people did have a lot to say about the age, and it did affect, like you said, a lot of writers. I think paid attention to that, and they've aged up characters. Like because if you look at before Goblin, not only in the fantasy but just in regular rom com, there were a lot of like shows where the female character is in her last year of high school. She's 19 years old. So like a lot of the romances are set in the last year of high school, and then it's about the progression of the female character going into college. And then the man is older, like he's working and that kind of stuff. So like after Goblin, you'll notice that there is a shift in the ages of female characters. And like I don't generally watch shows where you have such a significant age range. I've been thinking about it, and Goblin really is the only one because usually because the ones that I watch where the female character is in school, like everyone else is in school too. Like all the male interests and the friends and whatever are in school too. So like this was the only one. This is like my exception to
Mhm.
that rule. And apart from that, the other thing is parody. There's a scene, I think it's in episode 9, where is it episode 8 or 9, where they come to save Eun-tak, who's been kidnapped, and they're walking down this dark highway backlit by green and yellow smog, and these two men are dressed in like these black trench coats, looking badass and hot, walking down this scene, and they cut the car in half, and it's like a super serious scene, but it's gotten parodied so much in not only Korean dramas. I've seen it parodied in Japanese dramas. I've seen it parodied in Chinese dramas, and and like they don't do like an exact replica of the scene, but because like you see them walking next to each other, and you see like a particular setting, you're like they're parodying Goblin. But I think the brilliance with Goblin is they parodied the scene themselves because later in the show, like you see Kim-shin and Reaper
In the tunnel.
in a tunnel, and they're like, and it's like super serious, like, oh, they're acting all badass, but then nope, they just went to get groceries, and they were like, we want to impress Eun-tak, so we're going shopping for these vegetables, and they're walking out, and then they're like walking out the tunnel, and then someone comes up behind them, like, you guys blocking the road, and they're like, bye. And they thought that was, I'm like, yes, parody your own scene before anyone else can do it. And they thought that was genius. And then when you look at a lot of dramas afterwards, like they have seen their dramas that have scenes like that where the characters are making fun of the dramatics of dramas themselves. Like one of my favorite ones is being melodramatic. Like that whole show, like one of the subplots of that whole show is them making fun of the Korean drama industry, you know, like talking about product placements and how product placements are so obvious that you're supposed to be taking this super seriously, but you know, because someone is holding up a bottle in a very specific way, that yes, they're advertising makeup, they're advertising, you know, they're advertising a cleaning product, they're advertising in Goblin towels. They even make a point of like, because there's this brand, this bamboo branded towels, and there's a scene where they're actually letting you know, yeah, we know we're like kind of like
I
going to
didn't, I didn't know the towels are branded. I thought that was just like a joke.
it's a
Wow,
brand.
wow. I remember in terms of like product placement, the most recent one I noticed are like the Dyson vacuum cleaners. I see that a lot. I see a specific soju brand that's very well known in Korea. I just finished watching Chocolate, like I said, and they had God of a Chocolate branding all over. But the thing is with like Korean dramas, though, as much as I like to kind of call them out and say like, oh, you know, I noticed your product placement, but if written into the script very well, it can be very smooth and not too obvious.
Yeah.
If it's filmed and shot very nicely.
Mm-hmm.
And also if the actors can do it well, that's great because sometimes the actors would be like, oh, just tilt the angle a little bit to show you the product name. But like sometimes the actors just do it very naturally, and that's what makes me feel like, oh, it's a product placement, but I don't mind it at all because um, they did the actual, I'm losing a word. They do the actual product placement really well, to a point where I don't even notice it being such an advertisement at this point.
No, it's true. Like Goblin, that because we were talking about Goblin, I think Goblin is a very smart, is a very great example of product placement in the fact that they don't mention the names of the brands at all. Like for instance, if you watch other shows like Subway was a huge brand, and I would say between 2016 to 2018 was one of the most popular brands that were being advertised, and like it's used in Goblin too. Like you see them eating the Subways,
And touch
but
your
you
heart.
don't. But they don't mention that they're going for Subway. Like if you watch other dramas, they say, "Oh, you want to go get a Subway sandwich?" Goblin, they don't do that. They
No,
don't mention it. You
they
just see
just
them
say
eating
push
their
to
Subway sandwich.
I see.
Yeah, and I even using like Touch Your Heart, the same other show with Dong-wook and Yuan is her character I think was so smartly written in the fact that because she is an actress and so product placements is a part of her job, like
Mhm.
they make it a point of letting you know that these products that she's advertising as an actress within the show are the products that she's advertising as the actress within Touch Your Heart itself, which I thought was genius. And it's kind of similar to like Be Melodramatic does the same thing where they're like legit technically breaking the fourth wall. They're saying, I'm an actress playing an actress advertising this product to you, therefore I'm advertising it to you too. So it's kind of funny.
Touch Your Heart, I think, is also very like a parody to either Goblin because they do talk about goblin scenes a lot. They also bring up a lot of goblin motifs in Touch Your Heart, but also like you said, like the product placement, like they always make fun of like they also take it very lightly in terms of like how actresses and actors they do their product placement and like there was a whole scene in Touch Your Heart. I'm sorry, I'm jumping the gun right now, but Yuina's character was like, "Oh, have you seen my ad back in like 2010 when I did it for instead of saying Samsung, she says Samsung. Like they
Yeah.
I just changed the name a little bit, but we still get it. We're like, oh yes, wow, okay, it's genius. Like the fact that they made Yoon a very like she's almost like an idol type kind of actress, right? Like everyone likes her because she's very pretty. Um, I wouldn't say she's like the best actress out there, but then she's also very personable. She's very likable, and because of that, like she's the perfect actor to kind of play these kind of roles, both in Touch of Heart and also Goblin, because um, she's even though she's a very beautiful, pretty actress, and also the character itself is known. She's it's by default everyone knows that Kim Sun is very pretty or Sunny is very pretty already, but she's hella funny.
She
Like
is.
Yuna is so funny, and the way that she can make someone pretty, and the stereotype of being pretty is that you're not approachable, you're on a pedestal. But then she's like, no, I'm pretty, but also I can be very funny, and that's what I love about Yuna as an actress, and also Sunny as a character.
Mm-hmm. And she's very funny and she's very smart. And the same thing with Sunny. Sunny is very smart because she figures out things by
Oh,
herself. Like she figures out who
yes.
Reaper is, like that. She started to realize
Let's
like,
talk about that actually. The scene where she figures it out. Like
yes,
you watch a lot of K dramas, and then the female characters, whether it's the primary or the secondary, it's always like they're waiting for an answer. But
hmm,
and Yuina also, I'm just gonna sidebar really quickly. Yuina parodies that the trope of the woman in waiting, because she literally is like, I'm waiting for a man. If the 50th person passes by and it isn't the
yes.
some reaper, then I'm gonna go home. I'll do it again the next day. Like she does that, but then also she figures things out.
Mhm.
And let's talk about it really quickly, like how she did it.
She was so smart because she was like the scene where she's in, so they're in the cafe and this is Reaper. And the thing is like she's noticed that he hasn't given her his name because he has no name to give her, and he keeps appearing and he acts very he doesn't act normally. Like he acts like someone who's trying legit not figuring out how to be a person. um and what I mean by that is he doesn't know about business cards. He
Right,
doesn't
right.
know about cell phones. He doesn't know about how to he doesn't know like, okay, if you introduce someone, how to introduce yourself back, right? And she's putting these all these clues together, and then she's in the cafe and he drops the ring and the ring rolls, and she's like, I know I heard something and I know I saw something, right? And she just walks out and he thinks he's good, and she walks right back in. She has this reed in her hand, this stem from a plant, and she's like, okay, I know he's 177 centimeters tall. His shoes are about 2 centimeters in height. So therefore, he's gonna be about 180 centimeters. So if I'm this tall, she's like, if I'm this tall, I have to raise my hand like this high to reach the top of him. And then if I take in the time and a hat, and she just like whips it around and like waxing straight on the hat. And I'm like, that is so smart. Like it shows that she's not a Dixie blonde, and like all the women are like that's because even Eun-tak is very smart. She figures things out very quickly, and she's the one who actually clues in Kim-shin and Reaper into a lot of the things that go down, and that's some of the stuff that we'll get into. And like none of these women are stupid. None of they're like they have their own charms. They're personable. They're very I would also say, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say go getter. They take the initiative. Like if they think something needs to be done, they do it. They don't wait
They're
for
very
the men.
proactive for sure.
Yeah, they're proactive. They don't wait for the men to come and tell them what to do. They're like, okay, because they're like, okay, so this is what's going down. We're all in danger. Let's figure it out, because let's figure out how to do this. And I think that's a really interesting aspect of the show, especially for fantasy, because if you look at a lot of fantasy dramas, like using Taylor the Ninetale, like the lead character, she's a journalist, but she makes some extremely stupid discussions, like decisions, like we've talked about this. She made decisions that we're like, you're a journalist. Why are you like, you're not thinking of someone who's supposed to be inquisitive. You're not thinking of someone who uses critical thinking very often. Whereas if you look at for Goblin, these women use critical thinking. Like they figure stuff up all on their own. And then going to Eun-tak, like, again, like I said before, like Eun-tak is young, but she's not immature. And I think that's one of the things that kind of draws Kim-shin to her, is because he realizes that she's not someone to be underestimated, and once he realizes that he doesn't need to keep the truth from her to protect her, which a huge plus for me is because I one of my biggest peeves, and not only K dramas but like just in writing in general, is where people are saying, in order to protect you, I have to keep the truth from you, because somehow telling you the truth and somehow warning you about a potential danger is not the wrong thing to do. Goblin is not like that. Goblin is like, we have a demonic ghost presence walking around here who has a vendetta against Kim-shin and Reaper. People need to know what's going on, and that's what happens. They shared, like, all four of them share things with each other, and even Dakwa, like, once he figures things out, he tells them things that he's figured out, and he tells them what's going on too. Like, no one keeps secrets from people that did that unnecessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they do keep secrets, they, by the next episode, they end up confessing and saying, okay, I had this thing and I wasn't going to tell you, but I'm going to tell you now because I think it's for your best. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just good for everyone to have everything out in the open so that we all know what's going on. Please, thank you, writer. I appreciate that because I wish more writers would take that cue.
Yeah. Speaking of secrets, I just remember really just right now, it's that I felt so bad for Kim Sun's character because she did end up keeping a really big secret, right? And that is her memory wasn't wiped when Dokebi went poof, you know, like he went gone and everyone technically forgot about his existence because he technically never existed when God pulled him away. So, and yet Kim Sun remembers, and of course the Reaper will always remember. The Reapers don't get their memories wiped. Um, she remembers everything, and she had to keep it to herself because number one, she doesn't have. I believe it's because she doesn't want to have to deal with the Reaper. If she can pretend to be like, oh, I don't know this person, I can continue on with my life. I'm good. And then also, I could be wrong, but I think she was trying to protect um, Eun-tak as well because she, if like, there's no point of her bringing up her dead brother or like her missing brother because Eun-tak had a relationship with him, and then him not being there, like it would just be like a hot mess. Everyone would just be crying. So she kind of just kept that secret to herself, and that I think that was like the only big secret that lasted for like I believe like 2-3 episodes. Um, and she had me fooled because like I was like, wait, she remembers, and then the next episode I'm like, no, she doesn't remember, because Yoon is really kind of like really good with portraying Kim Sun as someone who has a really strong poker face sometimes.
Yeah.
And I just remember that because I was like, oh my gosh, when I realized that Kim Sun actually remembered everything, and she's the only one who kind of held that to herself. And then the moment when she saw Kim Shin again, who appeared outside of her cafe, her new cafe, and she had to pretend like she doesn't know him. She's like, oh, did I see someone outside the window? And then when he was gone, like she just dropped everything and she just kind of broke down because it's like, how can you see your brother who's technically dead come back to life and still not be able to go hug him or like to say hi or something like that? So it broke my heart to see her have to suffer alone through that. And I guess that kind of falls under the negative pile. It's just, I'm just like, no, my baby.
I don't see that as negative because if you think about it, her having the memory of Kim Shin, even though he believes that she doesn't, was, like, I think a gift to him because all this time that he was stuck in the ice world, which is where he was banished to, where he was returned to nothing, he believed that no one on the entire earth remembered him. He believed that no one remembered him enough to care, that there is no, imagine knowing you are existing in this other dimension all alone after 900 plus years of living as an immortal, watching people die over and over and over, and then getting banished to this other world where your existence is completely wiped from everyone on the face of the planet. But I think the writers making it that she still remembered him and that Reaper also remembered him was a gift to him because at the end he realized, okay, I still matter to two people, that the two people that mattered the most to me when I was alive back in the Goryeo age, right? And then for her not telling Eun-tak, like as you said, like her not telling Eun-tak was a gift to Eun-tak too because she knew why Eun-tak was, because Eun-tak went into an extremely deep depression. Like she was always sad and she didn't know why she was sad, and she knows but she can't tell Eun-tak because then Eun-tak would have to experience missing this person that she has no memory of. Because think of it, I don't I it's better to miss someone without knowing that they ever existed than to miss them and knowing that they existed but I have no memory of them. I think that was actually a really good way to explain grief on the part of the writers
Oh,
because they
yeah,
can
it's
explain.
so beautifully executed. It's just like, I agree with everything. It's just like, I'm like, but for Kim Sun to have to carry that, it was just so hard on her.
But then
Um,
think, both Kim Shin and Reaper had to carry this their own burdens for hundreds of years. 9 years is nothing in comparison with that,
that's true.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that's where they were like saying at least someone someone had to share this kind of burden for a
Mhm.
short time for them because they were carrying it for literally hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yes.
Like for her, she saw that 9 years as nothing.
Mhm. That's so true because it's like you said, the show is so powerfully written in terms of how the grieving process, right?
Mhm.
Like how much time is actually enough time for you to forget someone, and also like the topic of existence. It's like it's really scary. Like, is death actually like the worst experience, or is being alive, knowing that you're physically here but no one else knows you exist?
Mm.
That is actually really scary. And as I was watching the drama, I was like, wow, okay, I thought the show was just some kind of fantasy drama, but it's making me think about really deep thoughts and deep questions about life. And one of the reasons why I love the show so much.
This is why Goblin is, anytime anyone asks me, I always say Goblin is my favorite K-drama because it I love Asian dramas, and I won't only say Korean dramas. I think because Chinese, I think, and Japanese and some South Asian dramas do a really good job of using the framework of a romance to discuss very deep societal issues and talk about things that really matter to people, like grief and depression. Like talking about grief, Kim Shin is such, I think he's such a well-written character because the way they explain how, like you see, like you said, they what there is no time limit to grieving someone, there is no time limit to missing someone, because people say, oh, like someone died 6 years ago, you should be over that death. Why? That's someone that mattered deeply to you, that's someone that you love so much. And like, and for him, he like, for him, like, because when he became immortal, he what he called his takers, which was this family lineage of men. One, because he met, one was his caretaker when he was alive in Goryeo age, and he died, and he missed the death of this man that he cared for very deeply because he was off seeking his revenge against Wan Yo, and that was one of his biggest regrets, that he wasn't there for this man when this old man died, but the grandson was there. And the grandson was like, I will serve you always. But what I love about what the writer did with what they did with that relationship is it wasn't just a master servant relationship. Like they were family, because he's like, I will be your I am your master now, but once you grow up, he's like, I'm your father, and then I will become your brother, then I will become your uncle, then I will become your son, and then I will become your grandson. And it showed that they had a familial relationship. They had love for each other. It wasn't just master and servant. It was like they were families. And then as one generation died out, they would introduce you, and they had this ritual where he said, I am your uncle, and then it will be your brother, then it will be your son, and then it will be your grandson, which is what he did with Dokwa. Dokwa became his nephew. And then he's like, once Dokwa grows up and becomes more mature, he's like, I will be your son. And I thought it was so beautiful, like, because it showed like how people can process grief. And one of the things that helps him process grief is knowing that he has this lineage of this family to rely on, and like they love him and he loves them. And then even with talking about Reaper, like Reaper betrayed him, but he still loved him, because remember when he dies, he
Mhm.
says, forgive me for being so late, for having my, for like, for doing this so late. And like he like I he like forgive him, but he's like, he's still apologizing for not protecting him and not dying the heroic death that he had promised, because he's like, I will die a hero for you. And I'm like, oh my god, see, I getting all these choked because I love that drama so much. Oh.
I know what you mean. It's like this drama is they they cover life in such a large scale, and life itself is such a big topic already, right? But
Mhm.
then they use so many different scales, because a lot of times you tell a story, you tell it either from your personal experience, your personal perspective, and then you just really talk about how you go through life. But then they talk about, from Goryeo to present time Korea, but also and also like you said, like, oh, with Twilight they never really talk about like the history, or like with a lot of the more mainstream shows in either the States or elsewhere. They talk about, especially with fantasy, they talk about, oh, the present time, how vampire would live in the present time era, but they never talk about the vampire going through all these going through centuries, literally. And when you think about Dokwa's character and his family, they have to really literally see the Dokebi go through his hundreds of years of life. And when you think about it from like when we watch a drama like this, we take a step back when we look at it. We're like, oh, it's just 1,000 years. It's a number. But then if you put yourself in their shoes, you're like, how am I going to live through 100 years and then do that all over again and watch the people I make a relationship with that I love them and I have to say goodbye to each and every one of them every time every 100 years go by.
Mm.
And that's so depressing, like to kind of have to go through all these funerals and say all these goodbyes to all the people that you once loved. I think that's like something that I don't think enough dramas and also enough just TV shows
Mhm.
in this world kind of talk about, and that is like the scale of of a lifespan.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing about that is because like one of the things with him becoming a goblin, becoming immortal, it was a curse on him. It was considered a punishment. But the thing is like one thing I love about Kim-shin is that there comes a point where he stops thinking of it as a punishment. He was like, yes, I live all these lives, I'm living all of these years, but like he's grateful for the time that he gets to spend with these people. He's grateful for the things that he's been able to experience, like this extreme wealth that he's amassed. He's used it to like help other people, right? Like he if he meets anyone from like his past lives, he rewards them, and he's like, I will reward you for this in this lifetime. And then he just helps people. He's like, if I have this power, I'm not going to use it to torment people that don't need it. I'm going to use it to help people that need it, right? Like he's like, okay, like one of the characters, like this was a man that he met as a child. He met him as a teenager, and he's like, he stopped this boy from being abused, and he stopped him from killing himself. And then like 60 years later, he goes back and he says goodbye to him in Reaper's tea room. And I thought it was so beautiful. And like the person and this man remembered him. He's like, I changed my life because of you, and I worked my and I kept doing these things because of what you, that one moment, that that one day changed my life, and I changed my entire trajectory because of what you did. And it shows. And then when you, if you're thinking about death also as well, like even for Eun-tak, like her mother died, and like she sees these ghosts, but she doesn't resent these ghosts, because if you like if you also, there's a lot of dramas where like if you have a character that sees ghosts, like they resent them, they resent the presence of the ghost. But Eun-tak isn't like that. Like she's friends with these ghosts, right? Like they're her companions, and they protect her, and they do what they can for her.
And she does what she can for them too.
Exactly. Like she helps them to get
Cross over to the
closure.
afterlife.
Yeah, then there were two like we never really get anything about them. Like the student, like one student just popped up.
Oh yeah. Wait,
And
I
you're
think
like, where did you come from?
that student popped up because that student was, I believe, her mother's best friend or something.
No, no, not the girl, not the student, not her mom's best friend, but like there's some scenes where there's this male student who's just hanging around with the other female ghosts. And I'm like, where did he come from? And then there's this other woman that turns up in a black suit. Like in the later episodes, I'm like, okay, she's just there then. So she's just another ghost. They're just
Uh-huh.
another set of ghosts that Eun-tak basically that
It's
hangs around
the
Eun-tak.
Canadian ghost was funny though.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. I thought he was a real person, and then I was like, oh wait, of course, yes, there's ghosts everywhere. It's
Ghosts
not just
everywhere.
Korea. But I love the ghost characters too. I think they all add like a level. I think every character in this drama adds
Mhm.
like a level of pushing the story forward. Like the one ghost where she has like her resentment towards her husband for cheating on her, and then they ended up on a rooftop, and I'm just like, girl, where's your lighter? I'm like, you better bring your lighter out because you guys like you're at a very high point of that building, and this guy is not a nice guy, and this ghost can't protect you from this human person.
Yeah, yeah.
But of course, my favorite ghost character is the actress who makes it to Touch Your Heart, who plays
Yes.
lawyer Dan. So I love
Yes.
her too. And I also just finished my roommate is a Gumiho, and she plays a secondary character there also. So I loved her. I just love seeing that actress everywhere too.
Really good.
So
She's really funny. So going into another plus of the show, production quality, Ray. Let's get into Goblin's production quality. Okay, So one of my favorite things about this show is how the sets are designed. We're gonna get into fashion, but I gotta talk about the set design because I remember when this show came out, I actually watched some of the behind the scenes footage of the show. Like they don't do it for dramas much, but I love that they did it for this show because the director, like Eun-book, he talked about how he like how they designed the sets and like even for Goblin's house, I like they like it still always blows my mind to find out that a lot of these houses are built on sound stage. Like they he talked about the open architecture and how like it's a mix of old and new because Goblin and Reaper, they're both a mix of old and new, but in different ways. And like the chandeliers, like it's a lot of glass and it's a lot of reflection. And he's like, he wanted light. And like they went to New York to get these chandeliers, like the chandelier, like the big glass chandelier that has like this 1920s theme to it, is from New York. And like even like they paid so much attention to detail in this show. Like even the buckwheat flowers, which symbolize lover, and it's a theme that's carried throughout the show. They because of when they filmed it, buckwheat wasn't being harvested and it wasn't in season. So his mother grew the buckwheat flowers in her front yard. So all those flowers that we're seeing, his mother grew for the set for the show.
Wow.
So I was like, that's such a cool fact. And then another cool fact is the ship in episode 1 where the ship breaks apart in the scene. They filmed that on like the largest sound stage in South Korea, and it's this huge water tank, and like they built that ship to scale. So like half of it, the half that we see, think that's an actual scale ship model that they
I
built.
saw I saw this behind the scenes clip on YouTube as well, and I was like, I knew it was like CGI and like green screens or whatnot, but then like for them to build like a full scale ship, or at least the front or
The
the
half, yeah.
of it, because at one point the ship breaks into two, and then you have a fight scene on it. So I was like, that was so cool, like the way they did it. The production value, like I said, like it's equivalent almost to like for that one scene, it's like almost equivalent to what you would see in a movie.
Yes.
So
No, it's true. Like for a lot of K dramas, the production quality that we see in these dramas, I'm pulling up notes because I have made some notes about some stuff. The production quality for so much of these dramas is very high. Like if we talk about Penthouse, like I'm not sure what the budget probably went down because they're using the same sets, but like season 1 of Penthouse at the time of filming was the most expensive Korean drama made because I think they said each episode there's a train. Each episode was about 1 million won.
wow,
And
okay.
that's because of the set design, the furniture, the fashion. Like they wear like some couture fashion throughout like in Penthouse, and they've been even looking Goblin. Their outfits are all amazing. Like Kim-shin and Reaper, they don't step out the house looking less than perfect. And like
I
Gong
could have their closet. I think I have half of their closet. I would be
the
so happy.
coats. I want the coats. I want those coats for myself. Every coat that is worn by all the characters, I want from me. Sunny shoes, I want from me.
I would say Reaper's hats. Like,
Yes.
wow. I don't like wearing hats, but like I would definitely want to try those hats on.
The
Those
hats and like and the thing is like especially for Dong-wook and Gong-yu, they did a lot of the styling for their outfits themselves. Like that purple, that maroon, all maroon outfit with the shawl, Gong-yu styled that himself. He styled a lot of his outfits himself. One of my favorite scenes is, and I love the cinematography in this show. Talking about production quality, the cinematography in this show is stunning. But one of my favorite scenes is where she had like Eun-tak runs. She's running away because she finds out like as a bride of the Goblin, her job, her very reason for existing is to remove the sword from out of his chest, and she finds out that when she does that, that's when he dies. That's when he turns into nothingness, and she runs to a ski resort, and they're like walking on this bridge, and like it's all white, but he's in this amazing cobalt blue coat. I want that coat. Like this
Oh, yes, I remember it. Yes.
like, but then when you think about and then like the parallels like this kind of ties into production quality where like a lot of small details in the production and in the set design and even in the costume it ties into things that happen later because that scene is actually kind of a parallel to when he turns into nothingness. But if you think about it, she runs away up into the mountains, up into a place covered in snow, and snow for a lot of people represents nothingness. you know, to get away from the reality that she's gonna be technically responsible for killing him. And then what happens with him when she eventually does take out the sword?
He
He
ended
goes
up,
into a place of snow, into a place of nothingness.
oh my, I didn't even know. Wow. Wow.
Parallels.
Wow.
Parallels. And
Yeah.
then there's and then there's other things in the clue includes like the furniture. If you look at the furniture and even like the pins that they wear, a lot of the plot details are actually like hidden in these little clues. Like when if you look at it before Reaper, he doesn't wear anything on his suits. But once they start hinting that he is Wanyo, the king, you see him start to wear more things like pins,
Oh,
right? And one of the pins is a pin of a crown. And it was like, oh wait, that's the sign. That's a little hint that you are actually the king because before that he never wore any kind of
that's right.
accessory.
That's right. Oh my God. Wow. Wow. This is a drama I definitely have to give it another watch, like maybe next year or something. Um, just to kind of like relive all these moments and trying to pick up all these hints that I did. I never think of hints when it comes to K dramas. I feel like a lot of times they tell the story very straightforward, like, and they explain a lot. So I don't need like hints to kind of figure it out. Like I was on Twitter and I was tagging you in all these tweets. I was like, the Reaper is the king. I have proof, but I don't exactly know what the proof is. And you're like, you're overthinking it. And I'm just like, oh, am I? Am I? And then like when it got down, I'm like, Carrie, you said I was overthinking it. But this drama is so full of detail. Like they focus so much on the detail and then they get the larger picture done really well. It just and don't even get me started. Like I love a good drama where we have out of country locations. So we see them going to Canada, and
Yes,
you're
Quebec
Canadian, or
City.
you live in Canada.
I
So
I'm Canadian. I have Canadian citizenship. But yes, as you guys know, I'm from Barbados. I'm originally from Barbados, but I've lived in Canada since 2009, and I've been to Quebec City. I've been to Montreal. But where they film, I told you this. The thing is like as I said, I've seen this film, a first film. I saw this drama first in 2016 when it aired, and I've been to Quebec City after. Like I've gone to visit family there. And
uh-huh.
I've walked down those same cobblestone streets. And swear to God, it never occurs to me that I'm walking in the same places that they filmed. And you know me, like I always say, like for me as a drama fan, one of my dreams is to like go to different drama locations. And like I told you, like I can't believe I've been to like Quebec. I've been there like where they filmed like twice, and I've never taken pictures in front of the location. Shame on me. And
not
I'm
even
like, I've been there and I didn't take a picture.
not
How dare
even
I?
the not even the 24/7 Christmas store.
No, and I've been inside the 24/7 Christmas store and I did not take a picture to say, look where shame on me. And I can't.
How far, without disclosing where you actually live, but like how far would it take you to get back to Quebec?
It's a six, depending on traffic, a 6 to 7 hour drive. Because that's how well that it depends. On the it can take longer if there's like a lot of traffic, if there's like a lot of fog, because there's like this super long stretch of highway between Toronto going up there, like that is like, yes, very dense with a lot of fog, but then there's is also a lot of traffic from people who travel between provinces, and then there's like the logging trucks, like the like you know those semis, those massive long semis. So
Yeah.
it can probably be 6 to 7 or 8 hours depending. But yeah, I could like once this pandemic is over, because we're not I don't know if they're, yeah, probably left it because when the pandemic first started, like they weren't doing inter-province travel at all. Like you couldn't
Really?
travel, yeah, you couldn't travel outside of provinces, and we couldn't travel
Wow.
outside of city limits. So like we couldn't. I'm in the GTA, which is kind of Greater Toronto area, and we couldn't travel outside the GTA unless it was like for work, an emergency, or you know. But like
Mhm.
I think like interprovincial travel is like fine now, but still.
Wow.
But yeah, but
Kind of you said 6 to 8 hours,
it's
right?
yeah, it's like doable. Like there's
Yeah.
like a mini road
It'll
trip.
be a fun road trip if anything. And this time, I mean, the next time you go, you'll definitely remember to take a photo in front of
I have to.
Christmas store, the cobblestone streets, the hill. The hill, is that real also? The hill?
Yeah, but not like those.
The tombstones are not. I know
Gravestones are just props,
those
but
are
yeah, the
different.
hill is there because it's the hill overlooking the port. I've never gone up the hill, but I've seen the hill, like because like I'm like with my family, like they're like we're not walking up this hill in the sweltering heat, or in that is winter, because that's when we always go either winter or summer, and like summer in Quebec is hot, like hot. So they're like, we're not going up that hill, and like no, but next time I go, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna make sure I take a picture of the 20. I call it the all season Christmas store because it sells Christmas stuff all year round.
I know it's a
Um,
all season or all year round Christmas store, but if you could, I would say like definitely go back during the winter time when it's kind of like chilly and you can wear your favorite winter coats,
yes.
preferably the same color as Gong-woo's. So you
Mm,
can like take a photo and like
I
maybe
should.
Photoshop him into the photo.
I should.
But also I want to say like because my background is in architecture, like I would always notice like the architecture in dramas. And one of the reasons why I love K dramas is that they have beautiful modern architecture, they have amazing interior sets, but also when they do travel for filming locations, in this case in Quebec, the hotel that is at the foot of the hill, just gorgeous. I
Yeah.
don't know what building it is. I would like to find out and
Um,
visit it one time.
I'm looking up the name of it because they have it. I'm looking at it on the Wikipedia page. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Right. All right. So looking at it, right. So it was fifth highest rated drama. The difference in rating and watching is two different things.
Mhm.
But yeah. So and it won the grand prize at the Daesang, which is like the tops of the tops drama award. Gong Yu won for best actor, as he should, because that scene where he dies, oh my, breaks my heart. And when she dies,
Listen, that
emotional.
drama made me cry so much. Like that's if I were to rank like the dramas that made me cry that much, this would be like top top three positions for sure.
I bawled my eyes out when I've seen 4 or 5 times, but the first two times I bawled my eyes out the last two episodes. Like when she dies.
I didn't honestly, if we were going to talk about the main character dying, I didn't see it coming. Mainly because it's
No.
been a while since I've seen a main character in K drama died. Back in the day, like the first wave of K dramas when it was starting to become really popular internationally was like back in 2000s slash early 2000s, and like the female character always dies, and I'm like that's messed up. Like, why are they always killing off the female characters? So then I guess they changed the structure a little bit. So now it's more or less happy endings throughout all dramas. And then when I realized that Eun-tak is actually dying, like when the truck came down the hill, I was like, Goblin's going to show up, isn't he? Goblin's going to show up. He's going to prevent this from happening. And he didn't. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's in the tea room. And I'm like, no, because they're not going to open the tea room door. She's not going to walk up those stairs. No, she's not. They're going to fight the system. They're gonna break the system. And they're going to get her back. And then she says her goodbye, and I'm like, oh wow, this is real.
They did. The freaking white truck of death struck again. Like my heart was broken. And the reason why you don't see it coming is because they did such a good job of distracting us from the theory of nine, where
Yeah,
every 9 years her life is controlled by this theory of 9 years of like, so because nine, then 19, and then 29, and you forget that she's turning 29, that she's turning 30. So like there's still this lead because she celebrated her birthday, and you're thinking, oh, she's in the clear now, and you're like, oh wait,
yep.
she's not. And then the white truck of death strikes, and you're just like, oh my god. And it hurts not only because she died, but then you think he's gonna be alone again. And imagine him having to go through life again without his soul. So, and not just living maybe an extra 15, 20 years without his soulmate in regular human life. Like, no, this is hundreds of years, like with all, and like missing this person. I'm like, oh man, and he got us, and like I'm like, this is like one more death that he has to mourn. And then it's just like, but then you remember, oh wait, stages of life for. So then you're thinking, this is her she's gonna get they're gonna get at least 3 more lifetimes together, and it makes it all so much better. So but before we go on, but I mean the hotel, I've never been to the hotel because this is like up in the mountains, but the hotel is Chateau Frontenac, and that's I've never been there. It's very expensive. I would probably just be like, can I just dip in and take a picture and dip out? But
You can
then
just go inside and check the mailbox to see if there's a letter in there, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
and like the place where the cemetery, the family cemetery is Parc du Bastion de Laron, and or Luran actually, and then Petit Champlain is the Goblin's door. But the thing is I if I remember correctly, that door I think they changed the color of the door because like a lot of drama fans started to travel there to take pictures in the locations, and like that door I think changed location. And then there's the yellow wall. I think the yellow wall is in South Korea, so that was in Seoul. But I think the yellow wall got painted over. I think that was one of the locations that isn't there or changed anyway.
Mhm.
But yeah, going back, like so like we're gonna wrap it, but like her like that, and that was one of the other things of the drama. If you think about it, everyone dies, so that's another recurring theme. We talk about grief, but then like you can't have death without grief. And so the thing is with this drama, this is one of the few dramas, if not the only one, where every main character has died.
That's
If you
true.
really think about it,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
every main character has died.
Oh my God. That's so true. But what I like about their portrayal of death is that it doesn't end there because they always give us the next step of what happens after they die. And I believe Goblin dies too, right? He's not immortal forever.
No, he is still immortal.
He was still immortal. Okay. And
Yeah,
then
because they explained it that you would think that once he died and once he went into nothingness and he came back that he's living a mortal life. No, 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 no. They're like, nah. He has been touched by God. Therefore, he is however God made him, and he is immortal.
mm,
So he is. So the only thing I think that could take his life is God. Like God Himself would have to take his life
God
again.
was like, yeah, I don't like you anymore. I'm just gonna pluck you out.
Basically,
That's
right?
Goblin's end. Yeah, right, right, right.
But the thing is like because his life is a gift, like because as we talked about, he blesses others, like he does the deeds. Like God will be like, your work here is not done,
Mm,
but I'm gonna give you companions to I'm gonna give you these companions to be with you throughout life. So I think that's it. And then he's still gonna get to have. I think what's gonna happen with Eun-tak, what happens is her life will no longer be cut short. So she's no longer gonna be living by the rule of nine. So
right. Okay.
once she died, that life that was because remember he like Reaper calls her miscellaneous. What's it? He calls her miscellaneous order, miscellaneous something name because
Miscellaneous child or like the
miscellaneous
girl with no
something.
name or something. Because
Yeah,
the girl with no
miscellaneous
name.
no name or something like that. Because what happened? Because when Goblins blesses her, when he saves her when she's in her mother's womb, he creates a miscellaneous order in the art of death, and like like the names. Because in the Bible, you talk about the names written in the book. So like they're not talking about Christianity, but they're doing a reference to that where you have like your name is written in this book. When you're supposed to die, your name turns up on this card, and the Grim Reaper is there to clean your soul and like carry you over to the other side. And because Kim-shin interrupted that, her name gets erased out of the book, but it keeps popping up every 9 years because the number of the art of completion. But because she does die at 29, so her death is complete. Her first life is complete.
Mhm.
But I think what's gonna happen because the show makes a point of saying more than once that the standard human, perfect human life fan is 100 years.
Mhm.
So I think what's gonna happen with her is her remaining life things is gonna be 100 years each. So her second life is gonna be 100. She's gonna live to be 100. Her third life she's gonna live to be 100. Her fourth life she's gonna live to be 100. So that's like technically 400 plus years that they're gonna get to be together. And like I think that's amazing. That's
I
one of the
like
things
that.
I love about this show because they're like death is not finite. Love is not finite. It can go on and on.
And it can span generations, span eras, span time. I mean, of
Mhm.
course, you have a goblin who's close to 900 years old, or close to 1,000 years old, I should say.
Yeah,
Such
like
a beautiful drama. And then I do want to believe, like, even though it's almost like a fan service, I do want to believe that Touch Your Heart is a continuation of Wanyo and Kim Sun's characters,
mhm.
which is that, they are probably at their, I think it's the third life,
Yes,
because the end of Goblin, we see their second life,
yes.
right? Okay.
That's their second life because they kept their memories from when they were in the Goryeo. So when they go into the ending, when she's an actress and he's a cop, fans look at that as actually being their second life instead of a third. So when Touch Your Heart happens, we are like, that's their third life. That's Sunny and Reaper's third life. And and to me, what I think the writer, because it's different writers and a different director, but I think what they did is they kind of saw how much fans had this love for these characters. They kind of put a lot of touchstones of their characters in to the personality traits of the characters from Touch Your Heart. One of them being in Goblin, Sunny has this thing where she mixes up words, where she might think someone is saying one word and she's thinking they're saying something else. If you look at her character in Touch Your Heart, she does the same thing,
But,
right?
but even cuter, because I feel her character in Touch Your Heart is just like such a cotton candy
Yeah.
character. I just love her so much. And you're right, like all these character traits kind of like gets resurfaced in Touch Your Heart, which kind of, even though they're separate production teams, separate
Mhm.
crew, but it's like, because maybe they're also a fan of Goblin, and they're also the fans who were like me and were like, oh, they never got the happy ending in their first life. So the writer's like, why don't we create a show where it just so happens that it could be, fan theoretically, that it could be the third life. I think that's absolutely amazing, and I appreciate that. And they didn't even just give us Touch Your Heart, which is a drama that is very fluffy and romantic, but it was also not poorly written. They could have easily been like, oh, it's a Lee Dong-wook and Yoo-ina fan service drama. We're just gonna roll it out, collect our coins, and then peace. But the story was compelling. I was drawn to it every episode, and I believe Touch Your Heart is the one drama that I watched on Viki where I spent the least amount of time to go through it. I think I watched the whole thing in like 2 weeks, which is never possible for me. I'm the slowest drama watcher. But this summer I try to watch as many dramas as I can.
Yeah. The thing is, I was just looking up. So both Touch Your Heart and Goblin are produced by TVN. So that's where you would have like, because I believe if they were produced by a different network, you wouldn't be, they wouldn't have been able to insert some of the things as you were
You
saying
have to
from
do even
Goblin
more
fan
discreetly,
service.
right?
Yeah, they had more freedom to do that because they're like, it's the same network. They were like, you're doing fan service for a previous show,
Mhm.
go right ahead. And I've seen it happen very few times. Like the things with Korean dramas is you will have actors referencing other roles that they've played in other shows, like even like films, because even in Goblin there's a scene where Kim-shin and Eun-tak go to the cinema, and you can't see it now because it's been fuzzed out, but before the what in the original when it
It
was
was,
airing, it was Train to Busan,
yes, yes, yes.
which stars Gong Yu, like my
Yeah.
favorite all time favorite movie. And I remember when I first watched Goblin, I'm like, they did not. I'm like, no way! You got a legit scene of Train to Busan, then watching in the cinema, he's acting all scared and all this. I'm like, yes, I love it. But when it comes to outright fan service, um, I've only seen that happen once, especially for characters that died. Spoiler, if you have seen History 3, Make Our Days Count, like
Wait, I don't know what that is. Is that a K drama?
it's a Taiwanese male love. You know me, I don't like saying boy love,
Oh,
but it's a
boiler drama.
Taiwanese male love drama. And spoiler, one of the characters dies, and people were pissed. Like it was one of the most. When you talk about fandoms going berserk, that show, that writer, like they got mad heat and hate for how that show ended. But then the Japanese came in and rescued us because what they did with Love on the Line, another male love drama, is they gave us fan service by resurrecting the character, and people are like, yes, he's alive, yes.
Wait, the
So
same show?
and no, it's like a Japanese show. They were like,
Okay.
we're gonna give you the ending that you guys wish for in this Taiwanese drama. We're gonna make it
So
into
it originally it was a Taiwanese drama, but then there was a Japanese adaptation.
no, not an adaptation, like a completely different show, a completely different
Oh,
production,
okay.
different rating, but they brought the characters, they brought the actors that play the characters in the Taiwanese show,
I see, I
and
see.
they give like a little cameo, and I'm like, yes. So like
Okay.
when you talk about fan service, like Touch Your Heart and Love on the Line, they were my two favorite shows where you talk about fan service for
Mhm.
characters that did not deserve to die, or we thought they deserved better endings. Like you were talking, like you were saying, one of the things you don't like about Goblin, that is your main thing you don't like about Goblin, is that we didn't get to see them live the
Yeah.
life that we wanted them to live. So like when you talk about fan service for things like that, like Love on the Line and Touch Your Heart, to me, I see as like where you had writers that were saying, "We see you, fans. We see you, audience, and
We hear
we see
you.
you."
I love that because I was, to be very honest, I was a little bit bitter with the fact that they never got together. But then once I realized, because my cousin who watched both dramas too, she was like, Did you know about Touch Your Heart?" I was like, "What's that?" I think the name is very tacky, by the way. But I was like, "What is that?" And she was
Well,
like,
it's from a web novel, so
"Yeah, that's true too." So anyways, I don't know what Touch Your Heart is, and she was like, "Oh, it's a lot of people are saying it's the spin-off or like the continuation of your favorite characters," and I was like, "Really?" So I googled it, and I was like, surely enough, I was like, "Oh wow, the cast looks amazing. I'm gonna give it a watch," and I'm like, and then it really became like a remedy because I was like, yes, I was bitter about not having the happy ending. I wasn't like too frustrated with it because I was like, it is what it is. Like it's fine. And like you said, like, every character died, so it's not just them. And but when I realized, I was like, wait, I didn't get the happy ending for Wanyo and Kim's son, but then I get this whole 16 episode drama for them. I was like, oh, I'm okay with that. I was like, yes, give me this, and I just like devoured the drama in like 2 weeks. It was just so good.
yeah. And then like so now we're wrapping up now. So like, and this is gonna be my ultimate favorite thing about the show is like when you think about it, they got a lot of time together as a couple. Like because like it starts with Eun-tak saying, "I'm the brighter goblin," like and then but then like one they got together, they had time together, and then before like they had time together before he died, quote
We had a
unquote.
lot of time
They
together,
had a lot of time,
both
and
in
then
Canada and in Korea.
exactly, and then he came back, and they got time together then too before she met her unfortunate demise.
Yeah.
We had time seeing them to being together, celebrating, living with Reaper. Like, cause my mom was like, "I got 10 years more in this lease. You can't get rid of me." But they live together as a family, which is what one of my favorite things about this show too. Like, from family is one of my favorite things. And like they lived as a family. Like they're a family in this house. We got time with them and that, and then we know like yeah, we saw her come back at the end, like the last 2 minutes, but that didn't affect me because we had all of these episodes with them together.
Right. We
And
had
then,
actual memories of them together.
yes,
And it's not just like fabricated last minute. And we can actually hold on to it and be like, oh yeah, we have like, 15 episodes of them together versus that one episode of her not being there. So
hmm
I agree. I agree that they did a fantastic job with that.
yeah, like
They
I
broke
love this
the
show.
mold. They broke the K-drama mold a lot
They
in
did.
so many different ways. And then they became a trendsetter. They became a cornerstone for so many K-dramas, for fantasy dramas especially, because like we talked about the age difference thing.
They really did break the mold, and they set a lot of trends too. Like they set a lot of trends with regards to writing style because the writer, I'm not gonna go into it, but like she wrote King Eternal Monarch. This is not my favorite show. I think she got a little bit too caught up in the whole time dimension thing. But it did set a lot of trends with regards, I think, to dramas. And I think a lot of dramas were influenced with regards to production quality because networks were willing to invest more, I think. I could be wrong, but from what I've seen, you can know a difference in production quality of shows before Goblin and shows, or not even before necessarily Goblin in per se, but that era, like 2016, 2017, 18, like you saw a shift, like you can see networks investing more into
Right.
the K dramas. And
Because
I think a lot
K-dramas
of,
have always been labeled as like, oh, it's just a drama for like housewives, right?
yeah, yeah.
They never treat it as like television shows over here in America or in Canada or elsewhere or even in like the UK, because dramas are seen as soap operas, right? Our version of soap operas over here, but in Korea. So it's always like,
Mhm.
oh, it's daytime dramas or nighttime dramas. They're always geared towards like women at home. So they never really put a lot of like time, effort, money into the productions, but they do that for films, which is why we
Mhm.
have Parasite, we have Train to Busan. But then like you said, because of Goblin, and then I'm sure there are other dramas that also kind of contributed to the factor of getting more investors and sponsorships to kind of get the money to make really good quality dramas. You start noticing they got better cameras now, they got better editing teams, they have better audio, they have better soundtracks.
We're not gonna go into that now because
We'll need
we
a
have to
different
do it. No,
podcast.
I mean we have to do a separate episode
Yes.
just dedicated to soundtracks. But our OSTs also stands for original soundtracks. But Goblin has one. I'm torn. I honestly can't choose one as my ultimate favorite. But Goblin is tied with, I think I would say, the OST for Descendants of the Sun,
Mm.
The Ghost Detective, and Encounter as having my all-time favorite OSTs. The music for this show is so good. The talent they got to sing on this soundtrack. When I will come to like the first novel by Ailey, one of my all-time favorite K-drama songs. Like that song gets me emotional. I love singing it. It's one of the first K-drama songs I actually learned the lyrics to. And but like the talent, you have Sam King, you have Gao, you have
Punch.
oh Punch and Chanyo. Oh,
The opening, the title sequence song, like the opening song, once it plays and once it goes on, I'm just like, I can picture the opening sequence of Goblin.
yes, the
I'm
Vici.
like,
That's the you have the Vici on this on the OST. Just like we're gonna do a separate drama episode beyond the romance episode talking about
feel.
OSTs, and we will for sure get into the OST for Goblin because Chef's Kiss top tier right there. But we're gonna wrap up now. But thank you so much, Ray, for talking with me. Is there anything else you want to say about Goblin before we wrap up?
No, it's just go watch it. It's on Viki, in the States at least I know of. But if you can grab your hand on Goblin anywhere on the internet, just watch it. I'm not gonna tell anyone that you watch it illegally, but yeah, it's a great drama. It has a great soundtrack. The cast is so amazing. They all have great chemistry. And I always have to thank Carrie for introducing me to this drama because it's been on my radar for the longest time. Like my friends from college are like, "Oh, I watched Goblin. It's so great." And I was like, "Yeah." And then during the pandemic, I was like, "What do I have to lose? I have time in my hand right now." So I played it, and I wasn't expecting much because I was like, "It's such a over." To me at the time, I was like, "It's such an overhyped drama. I hear it all the time." And then I'm here sitting here like crying my eyes out. I'm like, life lessons after life lessons, and I'm just like the characters, oh, so great. And the writing team, the writers team, just fantastic job.
So good. It's so good. Production quality. Round of applause to everyone involved, the actors, the director, the writer, cast and crew, production crew, everyone who built those amazing sets, the stylist for having everyone looking fly. What? Y'all did not slack at all with this drama again. As Ray said, it's available on Viki and watch it there. It's only 16 episodes. Each episode is roughly an hour and some change. Well worth your time. Take your time with it, especially the last few episodes. You might bawl your eyes out. And yes, we went through spoilers, but trust me, we have not shared.
Oh
I
yeah,
think like half of everything that goes on because there's a lot of stuff that goes on with the characters that we didn't talk about. There's characters that we haven't even mentioned that are very pivotal to the plot. It's so good. I could talk about this drama like so long. But again, thank you everyone for joining me for another episode of Beyond the Romance. Thank you to my friend Ray for watching this and listening to me and talking with me about this. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. It will be in podcast format on butwhythepodcast.com as well as other podcast streaming platforms. So please listen to it if you can, if you're driving somewhere, or like sometimes I listen to podcasts and OSTs and music when I'm like washing the wearers, cleaning, walking the dog. Please listen, like, and subscribe. I've noticed, I only noticed this week that I never say that, and I'm pretty this is something I should be doing as a YouTuber.
like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe to both my channel and Ray's. Ray has his own channel, which I will link in the description box down below. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CarrieCNH12. That's CarrieCNH12. You can follow my hashtags Dramas with Carrie, where I live tweet the shows that I'm currently watching, usually during the week at 8 p.m. Eastern or some days later, depending. I also co-host the Saturday Night Sci-Fi Live tweet every Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. You can watch this episode as well as other episodes I've done for Beyond the Romance on my YouTube channel, as well as the discussion I did with Christine Cole, who is the PD of Law School, which is another Korean drama found on Netflix. And I've done a lot of interviews for the New York Asian Film Festival as well as Fantasia Fest. You can find interviews here on the YouTube channel, as well as written typed up interviews on butwhythepodcast.com, as well as on observer.com. I do many things. I did two film festivals at the same time. That was a lot of work, but it was so much fun. And Ray, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on YouTube and Instagram and Twitter and maybe TikTok. All my handle is at Ray Liu Rayliur. I've been inspired by Carrie actually. I started tweeting. I don't live tweet because I don't have time for that, but I do try to round up all my thoughts on specific K dramas into like a thread once I finish, so I can get my thoughts out and kind of look back at like what I liked about the show and what I didn't like about the show. So Carrie kind of inspired me to do that. So I also do that on Twitter, again at RayLuR, and that's where you can find me.
Yay! This was so much fun. I can't wait till we discuss our next one. We have to pick out our next drama. Usually it's gonna be your drama to talk about. It's usually one that he hasn't seen before because I like to discuss new dramas with people. But again, thank you so much everyone for being with us. I hope you like this. And until the next episode of Beyond the Romance, have fun. Bye. Big hearts. Big hearts.